coaster ride for our dollar on foreign exchange markets. Recommendation that Detective Sergeant Dodger Rogerson be dismissed from the force. Hurdler Debbie Flintoff leads Australia's gold medal charge at Edinburgh. Good evening. The federal government has been forced to act following an extraordinary day's trading that saw our dollar plummet to close on 57 US, its lowest level by far. Treasurer Keating announced changes to Australia's foreign investment policy. The reaction was immediate as foreign exchange dealers pushed the dollar back up more than 4 cents, its biggest one-day rise on record.
The dollar's spectacular crash this morning sent shockwaves throughout the financial markets, forcing up interest rates on the one hand and pulling down share prices with the other. The Aussie was holding just above 60 US cents in nervous trading until selling orders started coming from Japan just after 10 a.m. From there, it was a steady fall until 11:30, when it dived to just 57.15 US cents before partially recovering as speculators took their profits.
Well, it's extremely hectic, Michael. It's one of the worst market conditions that we experienced in Australia so far.
While traders were wondering why the Reserve Bank had not intervened to support the currency, a desperate federal government was preparing 3 major policy changes. Unable to afford the interest on the mortgage, our overseas debt, Paul Keating is selling off the farm. He announced that most Foreign Investment Review Board restrictions are being suspended, allowing greater foreign ownership of manufacturing industry and real estate. The dividend withholding tax on dividends paid overseas is being abolished, along with the branch profits tax on foreign companies. The Treasurer is also backing down on his July 1 decision to reimpose withholding tax on key foreign borrowings by Australian companies. The government hopes these changes will encourage foreign investment in Australia, bringing in more overseas currency. The foreign exchange market immediately approved, boosting the dollar by 4 cents in half an hour. Michael Pascoe, National 9 News.
Those changes came too late for the stock market. It lost more than 24 points, mainly because of a slump in the industrial sector. And after a volatile day, the dollar finished at 61.5 US cents after going as high as 63. The dollar, the budget, and the crisis over wheat exports today forced Prime Minister Hawke to cancel a trip to Fiji next month for a meeting of South Pacific nations. But Mr. Hawke says he is prepared to go to Washington to argue Australia's case against American attempts to steal our important wheat markets. In the meantime, an all-party delegation leaves for the United States on Wednesday.
Primary Industry Minister John Kieran will lead the all-party mission to Washington. Other members will be Deputy National Party leader Ralph Hunt, New South Wales Liberal Wal Fife, Australian Democrat Senator Michael Macklin, and Chairman of the Prime Minister's Country Task Force, Labor MP Barry Cunningham. They're expected to leave on Wednesday to lobby US congressional leaders against the plan for subsidised wheat to be sold to the Soviet Union and China. But Mr. Kieran didn't seem very confident this morning about the delegation's chances of success.
I'm not a gambling man, I wouldn't like to put odds on it, but I still think it's very important that we do go across.
The Prime Minister was asked why he wasn't heading the mission to show the Reagan administration how important the issue is for Australia.
I have told them that I'm prepared to go there if it were necessary, and we'll leave our options open on whether that would be.
If Mr. Hawke did decide to go to the US, he could do it after the London meeting of Commonwealth leaders on South Africa that he'll attend next weekend. Mr. Hawke announced late this afternoon that he suddenly cancelled plans to attend a conference of South Pacific leaders in Fiji after the London meeting. His reason? He wants to be back in Australia to supervise preparation of the crucial August the 19th federal budget. That's now much more complex, the Prime Minister says, because of America's raid on our wheat markets and the dramatic fluctuations in the value of the dollar. Laurie Oakes, Canberra.
A 28-year career in the police force could soon be over for Detective Dodger Rogerson following a ruling today from the police tribunal recommending his dismissal. The controversial detective was found guilty of 7 misconduct charges. His future will now be decided by the Commissioner.
Due to an illness, the former detective sergeant was not in court today. For the past 4 weeks, Judge Thorley has investigated 9 charges against Rogerson. 3 related to this interview on the Willisey program last April, in which Judge Thorley found Rogerson guilty of impairing the efficiency of the force by naming Sydney underworld figures Arthur Neddy Smith and Lenny McPherson as police informants. But the most serious charge against Rogerson was the opening of 2 false bank accounts involving a total of $111,000. Rogerson claimed the money had come from the restoration and sale of a Bentley. But rejecting the argument, Judge Thorley said the inference was overwhelming, the money was in some way tainted. In summing up, he said, the community is entitled to have confidence in the police force and its members. What has been shown here is a betrayal of that entitlement. Although the judge said Rogerson had a most enviable record, at least up until recent years, he said, I think the only possible recommendation is that he, Rogerson, be dismissed. Rogerson wouldn't comment on today's findings. It's now up to Commissioner Avery to decide his future. If Mr. Avery follows the judge's advice in dismissing Rogerson, the former detective stands to lose a considerable amount in superannuation after 28 years' service. Steve Barrett, National 9 News.
Police say they haven't finished investigations into an SP betting network broken at the weekend in simultaneous raids around Sydney. It was the gaming squad's biggest operation and resulted in 11 arrests. Now, detectives are searching for the supplier of a special type of paper used by the ring, which dissolves in water to destroy any evidence of gambling.
The equipment seized in Saturday's raids revealed just how sophisticated SP betting has become in the 80s. At 11 separate locations around Sydney, police found more than 50 telephones, linked to 2 control centres by illegal phone diverters. Surveillance cameras and electronic sensors form part of an elaborate security system. But the greatest security measure was the paper used to record bets. Simply dip the betting slips in water, and within seconds the evidence is nothing more than a murky cloud. Detectives believe hundreds of betting slips were disposed of this way in Saturday's raids. But not all the evidence was destroyed.
We did manage to salvage some of the documents before they were destroyed, and it does confirm a very, very large operation.
Scientific tests will be carried out on the dissolving paper. In the meantime, the gaming squad wants to know who makes it.
Obviously, it must be a limited market, and there wouldn't be a lot of people who would have a great demand for water, for paper, I should say, that dissolves in water.
Inside the syndicate's main office here in George Street, detectives also found a computer terminal, which they believe may have been linked to a data bank somewhere else. If police can find that data bank, which is likely to contain all the betting records, then they'll be able to establish the full extent of the SP operation. A conservative estimate of the syndicate's turnover is $500,000 each race day. 11 people will appear in court next month in connection with the raids. Stephen Fenley, National 9 News.
2 customs officers have been charged after federal authorities allegedly caught them allowing illegal Korean immigrants into the country. The 2 were reportedly paid $2,500 each to ignore official procedures at Mascot Airport. In all, 20 Koreans have been arrested in connection with the racket. In the news ahead, the Liberals begin an important conference in Adelaide, and the teenager judged America's best juggler.
You know how it feels when your head's stuffed up and your throat's on fire. When your throat's on fire, try Allen's Anticol. Its soothing, cold-relieving centre of menthol, eucalyptus, thymol and vitamin C can help put out the fire in your throat. Allen's Anticol.
Get lazy, get noticed, get knitting.
Get Knitting. Every fortnightly kit gives you 12 original patterns.
Get casual, get formal.
And a knitting guide that shows you how to add your own personal touch.
Get shortening, get lengthening.
In fact, all the expert hints and tips that help make knitting so satisfying.
Get pattern, get know-how. Get guidance, get knitting.
Get Knitting from Marshall Cavendish.
Here comes Holden Barina.
Get you anywhere you want to go. It's a car that will go, go, go.
Feels like a dream. It's gonna set the scene.
Take you for a ride. It's a feature-packed machine. Barina at its price. You want to know. Barina. It's a car that will go, go, go. Barina. Baby Barina.
Holden Barina gives you more run for your money.
Super Fruities, and McDonald's. I got a Sunday date berry, McDonald's blackberry, and I got a pie, McDonald's pineapple pie. And I've got a shake I really like to make, McDonald's green apple shake.
Blackberry Sunday, pineapple pie and green apple shakes for a short time only at McDonald's.
Super Fruities, that's the blackberry, green apple and pineapple. It's a good time for the great taste of McDonald's.
Rumours that the state government might be having second thoughts about the monorail were firmly quashed today in an attempt to reassure developers threatening to pull out of the Darling Harbour project if there is no people mover. Premier Unsworth and TNT boss Sir Peter Abels said the monorail project will not be stopped.
Sir Peter dismissed claims he'd been worried by public pressure about the monorail and said TNT's contract had never been in doubt.
You all are forgetting that we are living in a world where the greatest future for Australia is tourism. And then you are sitting around here and trying to knock the very thing which will contribute more to tourism in New South Wales than anything else that ever has been done.
As for arguments against the monorail concerning safety, oil leaks and the environment, Premier Unsworth claimed they were all furphies, and he predicted the people mover could even have a role in the revitalisation of Pitt Street when it becomes a mall.
I'd like to see us develop a long-term proposal to revitalise that part of Sydney. And if we have to at some time in the future, we'll relocate the pylons of the monorail and run it right up the middle of Pitt Street.
The opposition says even to think of putting the monorail in a planned pedestrian mall is outrageous.
I really believe Mr Unsworth has lost leave of his senses. He may as well decide, as I say, to run it to Turramurra so he can go home on it, or to run it to Tweed Heads.
How are you, Premier? Well, amazing to death.
Mr Unsworth called in another big gun today to help him on the campaign trail. Back in the political limelight was Neville Wran, catching votes for his successor in the run-up to next Saturday's Rockdale by-election. And from Mr Wran, an observation about the man who replaced him.
He seems to be doing pretty well.
Cheryl Taylor, National 9 News.
Amid reports of serious health problems, Lionel Murphy has withdrawn a legal challenge to the Parliamentary Commission investigating him. His lawyer says action was no longer necessary because of what he called the inconsequential nature of the allegations against the judge. He denied the move had anything to do with claims that Justice Murphy's health is failing. The federal opposition signalled today it will make taxation a major issue at the next election. At the Liberal Party's annual council meeting in Adelaide, John Howard launched a $250,000 billboard campaign against the government's policies.
After months of taking political flack, John Howard was clearly enjoying going on the attack, posing with one of the giant posters the Liberals began putting up on billboards around the country today.
Look at that button. Look at it.
Tied in with newspaper advertisements and later TV commercials, the message is graphic. Paul Keating's hand squeezing blood from a stone, the Australian taxpayer. Liberal research has pinpointed Labor's taxes, ranging from the assets test through to fringe benefits, as seriously damaging the government's popularity. And the opposition's chosen its annual conference as the launching pad for both the campaign and John Howard's alternatives.
We're going to throw out the capital gains tax. We're going to throw out the fringe benefits tax. We're going to throw out the tax on lump sum superannuation. We're going to throw out Mr Hawke's assets test, and for good measure we're going to throw out his lousy so-called Bill of Rights.
Later, at the formal opening of the Liberal Party conference, John Howard sat and listened as Party President John Valder called for everyone in the Liberal Party to give Mr Howard support. He said only through loyalty and goodwill could the Liberals expect to win office.
But just before Mr Valder issued that call for party unity, former leader Andrew Peacock gave an interview on Brisbane radio. He said there that he'd like to lead the Liberal Party again. He also said he didn't see that happening just now. Peter Harvey, National 9 News, Adelaide.
Experience, so the saying goes, has no substitute. But try telling that to the new US juggling champion who beat 1,000 professionals and amateurs today to win the title in California.
It takes patience to learn how to juggle and to work up a good juggling routine. Experience is the best teacher. Anyone can twirl a rope with his head while juggling 3 balls, while standing on a balance board. Anyone with 64 years of practice.